Right. You're live.
This is Senate Transportation Committee. We are Thursday, January 29th, and our first witness is Rich Sabella, and Mr. Sabella, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yep.
Keep it off.
Senator White wanted to say a few words before you came on, but you will be first. And when you do come on, you'll need to introduce yourself and give us a little background about yourself before you go into your testimony.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thank you, Mr. Sable. Thank you for coming on, Bella. This gentleman found out about this issue from Reddit. So I wanted to just tee it up a little bit because the purpose of our conversation today, so that you don't have to carry the weight of the mini truck association, is to address that exact question: is what are mini trucks? What are K trucks? How do we define them in Vermont state statute? And how do we properly make sure they're registered? And this witness in particular will be talking about their experience of having one of these vehicles and attempting to get it registered. And I know that there are many other Vermonters who've reached out or are on the Reddit thread related to the K trucks that have had diverse experiences, but at least not consistent experiences with attempting to get their vehicles registered. So my hope in the language that you'll see from Damien that he was kind enough to draft is to clarify and reiterate what we actually have already heard from the DMV commissioner, which is in correspondence over email with the chair of House Transportation, which we can include on our legislative page, was essentially the sense that no, they're not trying to stop folks from registering K trucks or limit the driving of those vehicles in any way, but rather it seems like there's just some lack of clarity. So that's really what I wanted to tee up, and thanks to the developer for taking the time. And there's another gentleman named David from who runs an advocacy organization named Lone Star K Trucks. And he provided us with some materials on our legislative page, which I'm happy to talk through, but it just says like, what is a mini truck? And it includes a letter from SEMA, who is if you've ever been to the SEMA conference, it's that organization, the Equipment Manufacturers Association. They also have a letter to provide to us. So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
Perfect. I think we're ready now.
All right. Well, good morning, chair and members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rich. I am a Vermont resident, and I am the proud owner of a 2000 Subaru Sambar K truck, or mini truck, as it's been called. And I'm here to describe my firsthand experience registering the vehicle here in Vermont and why that experience has convinced me that clear statutory language is needed. I began my registration process in 2025 and around September, October. And before importing the vehicle, I did research Vermont laws, specifically determine whether K trucks were legal for road use. I did this multiple times throughout the process, and I could not find any statute or regulation that made them illegal. The only relevant law I did identify was H729, which restrict their use on interstate highways, which that restriction makes sense to me. And I agree with that. And I planned my use of the vehicle accordingly. Once the vehicle arrived, I began contacting the DMV to schedule my registration appointment and confirm what documentation would be required. And during those calls, I was repeatedly told by different DMV staff that K trucks were illegal. When I asked for specific statutes or regulations that made them illegal, no one I spoke with was able to provide one. In each case, once I pressed for a legal citation, the conversation would then shift back to discussing the paperwork I was requesting information on that I needed for the registration. I was told multiple times that the vehicle would either not pass inspection or that it was illegal to inspect. Again, no statute or written rule was cited to support those statements. Because of the conflicting guidance, I had to call multiple times just to determine what was actually required of me for this. And during these conversations, several DMV employees told me that there were strong rumors that K-trucks would soon be banned outright in Vermont because they were considered dangerous. I was advised to contact the State House for more information, and when I did so, legislative clerks told me that they had heard similar rumors and advised me to contact my representatives. After not receiving responses from my local representatives, I contacted the governor's office. In that conversation, a member of the governor's staff initially stated that the DMV had effectively banned K-trucks by instructing inspection stations not to inspect Japanese domestic market vehicles. After further review during the call, he acknowledged that there was no state or federal law authorizing such a ban and that this position was not supported by the statute. He also confirmed that he heard similar discussions about potentially banning these vehicles in the future. When I eventually went to the South Burlington DMV for my appointment, the employee at the check-in counter stated, "These Japanese trucks are illegal." When I asked for the law that made them illegal, none was provided. I proceeded with my appointment as scheduled. The DMV employee who handled my paperwork on both visits, it was the same employee, had very different understanding. She was familiar with the current law, reviewed my documentation, explained what additional information I needed to bring back, and was able to issue me my temporary registration so the truck could be inspected. Without her knowledge and without her willingness to rely on written law rather than informal guidance, my registration would not have moved forward. When I brought the truck for inspection, the inspection station told me that they had been informed by the DMV that JDM vehicles were not to be inspected. However, after reviewing the actual statutes, my paperwork, and the vehicle itself, they were able to inspect it. In the end, I was able to register my vehicle legally, but the process was far more difficult than it needed to be. Not because of missing paperwork or non-compliance on my part, but because different people within the system were operating under different interpretations of the law. My concern now is not just what I experienced, but what this uncertainty means going forward. When legality depends on who you speak to rather than what the law says, residents are left unsure whether they can rely on registrations issued in good faith. Based on this experience, I'm asking that the committee consider codifying clear, definitive statutory language regarding the legality of Japanese domestic market vehicles and more specifically K-trucks for use on Vermont roads so that residents, state employees, and enforcement agencies will all have the same understanding of the law.
I would say the first thing that we're going to do is have DMV in and ask about not your situation specifically, but the situations around these generally. But go ahead.
Just thank you so much for your testimony, and that is a very reasonable request. And I'm honestly sorry that you have to make it because it should be clear to customers when they go to any of our agencies.
Well,
What
it
is
should be
accurate.
clear before you bought the vehicle that you knew you could register it with.
Yeah. So thank you for your testimony.
Are there any other questions? Pat?
Yeah, can you buy, you bought it new here or used?
It is a used vehicle. The federal guidelines are that these vehicles, when imported, have to be 25 years or older in order to be imported under the exemption that would allow them for road use, depending on your local state laws. So I did purchase it used, and I imported it myself.
And did you pay purchase and use tax?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I paid all applicable taxes and tariffs associated with both registering the vehicle and bringing it in.
Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say thank you again for being willing to speak on this and for also going through every channel possible to try to communicate that there was a lack of understanding at the ground level. I wanted to ask, just like as an owner of one of these vehicles, I seem to be seeing more of them. And I'm wondering if you think that, I mean, even based on the virality of the conversation on the Vermont Reddit thread, it makes me think that people are buying more of these. We're gonna see these continuing. I'm wondering if you as an owner could just talk about, is there a growing, are people purchasing these vehicles more? Are you seeing it growing as a trend? Or is this just like a random fluke?
So I think there's a lot at play, increasing with the increase in purchase of these vehicles. The current state of the economy, where you're looking at either paying $600 a month, even for a pre-owned vehicle, or just spending outright. I think I put in maybe $6,000 to get this truck. I have something that is very much applicable to my needs, in being able to use it on my land for farming use, and also be able to go up to Lowe's and get some supplies, some building materials, and throw it in the back. They're very useful, and they do look awesome, and there's a bit of virality in how they look. But the parts are also easily accessible, not expensive, and maintaining them is not hard at all. So there's a lot of factors at play as to why we're seeing more and more of them.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Did you say they have to be 25 years old?
Yeah.
To come in?
Yes, 25 years or older in order to be in order to come in under the exemption 2A on the NHTSA form, which would allow them for road use and also exempt them from certain EPA standards as well.
So they don't have fines or.
Oh, right. So are they still making them?
Yes. K trucks are still very, very much used in Japan today. As a matter of fact, the more every single year the next version gets to be imported. I have the 2000, which was the latest that could be imported, and the more we step forward, the safer they get, and the more features they have. I have an airbag. I have DOT rated glass. Mine is up to par with an older American vehicle than any other model that could be on the market. So I feel safe in mine.
Go ahead.
That was gonna be my next question. Did they meet all the crash standards for inspection? Or for, not inspection for?
They don't need to if they're 25 years old.
They would be exempt. They would be exempt from that. Newer models do have crumple zones and are a lot tougher than some of the older ones. But the assumed risk you'd be taking with the older ones is just about the same assumed risk you would have hopping on a motorcycle and driving that down the road, except you're more visible in the truck.
What's the top speed on yours?
God, I think with mine I'm able to hit around 80 miles an hour top speed.
Oh, okay.
And there are supercharged models that could go faster. But all of them can go over 50 miles an hour and meet the requirement for being able to be on a 50-mile-an-hour road.
And Rich, when you said you agreed with the prohibition on interstate highways, why was that? Because of the speed or the thing?
Yeah, those roads tend to be a lot faster going over, even though I can go 80 miles an hour, I definitely don't want to go 80 miles an hour or have people going 80 miles an hour around me in the vehicle, just for the sheer fact of its size. Not that, it would be unsafe to do so. I think that's a reasonable give.
Okay.
I think we will be looking to take testimony from DMV about this. So thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I Googled it, and in AI, K trucks are popular in Vermont for farm hunting and local use but registering them for on-road use is currently challenging due to shifting DMV policies and potential upcoming restrictions.
The AI means more than we have.
I'm just
I'm glad
saying.
it's not here, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it's not good.
Yeah,
Well,
When
well,
we asked the commissioner,
We know.
he said, no, there's no problem. You can register them easy.
and we,
He said,
Well, I think we're gonna have to have. Apparently, there's some question about that, so, we will have to dig a little deeper into this.
if I just say, got some language from Damien that he's drafted that I'm hoping we can consider in the DMV bill. Whether or not it's this round, because I think we have to vote it out today. Yeah, so if we're willing to put at least some version of it in whatever draft we can come up with, I would be appreciative of it. Although the draft doesn't include a request for like a memo from DMV, I think that's something that I'm gonna ask for from the commissioner specifically as well.
Okay. I think. You wanna move there, or you wanna sit
Oh,
here?
Yeah, I can go up there too again.
It doesn't matter.
Wow.
We're
Okay.
doing flotation.
I should go up there?
No.
I should say, okay. Okay, so the next thing that I was hoping we could talk about is S-172, which I think is why we have folks in the room now, which is related to requiring the use of personal flotation devices during cold weather. The reason I think this bill is relevant for our committee is, although it may not seem like a DMV miscellaneous bill, inclusion, it does relate to boating and being out on the water, and that is our purview. And I know that the House Transportation side of things had considered it, but we're hoping to see us potentially work on it first. And the reason I introduced it was largely because I agree that drowning is a terrible, terrible thing that happens, and it's a tragedy in our communities. And I would, oh, thank you. This is the K truck stuff I printed, so we should, oh, good, that's, thank you. So I would hope that we could consider any law that would help prevent drowning, especially if you've ever fallen into cold water. You know that your body reacts a little differently, or at least mine does, in warm weather. So I was very surprised when it was brought to my attention that we don't have the same requirements for personal flotation devices during cold weather, when it would seem like an even more logical thing, due to how your body can react in cold weather. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from, our witnesses, on this. Yes. And we also have Representative Ray Garofano, who introduced the same bill on the House side. So we really appreciate you.
Damien, you're next on the schedule.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you wanna just kick us off and.
You wanna walk through the language?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna take off now, so
Bye.
I'll be back.
That's the third one.
Yeah, there's 3 pieces of material in there. There's like the K truck explainer, the letter from SEMA, and a letter from the advocacy group. Yeah.
Good job.
And you like thank
All right. Good morning. For the record, I'm Damon Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. This morning, we are looking at S-172. And the bill is pretty straightforward. What it does is it amends the equipment law with respect to boats. And this particular section covers everything from like the lights that are required on certain motorboats and sailboats, and where those lights have to be and what colors they have to be, to things like personal flotation devices. So what this would add is a new requirement that, so currently with personal flotation devices, you're required to have the flotation devices on the vessel. And for children, I believe it's under 12, they're required to be wearing a flotation device when the vessel is underway. What this would do is it would add a requirement that before May 1st every year, so January through April, And then on or after November 1st, so November and December, so really a 6-month period, all individuals aboard a vessel that is underway, if they're on the open deck, would have to wear a properly secured personal flotation device. And it's important to note the next section in here, inspected commercial vessels, so these would be your Lake Champlain ferries, are not subject to this requirement. They have an exemption. So those are U.S. Coast Guard inspected commercial vessels. They include things like the ferries, passenger ships that operate for hire, cargo ships, working boats, that sort of thing, that are required under federal law to be inspected by the Coast Guard. They're not subject to this, but this would be other vessels. If you're on the open deck, you'd have to wear the personal flotation device. So that would be the major change there. Obviously, in Vermont, some of those months, many years, the lake is iced over. So,
But it's not, could be anybody.
could be any body of water, Vermont, if you're on a vessel. And it's underway. So,
And vessel could be a paddleboard.
let me pull up the definition of it here just to make sure I don't misanswer that. Vessel is defined as every description of watercraft other than a seaplane on the water or a racing shell or rowing scull occupied exclusively by individuals over 12 years of age, used or capable of being used as a means of transportation on water. So it includes paddleboard, sailboat, kayak, motorboat, etc. So, but yeah, thank you for checking on that. But yeah, so this would basically, so if now, if you're on Lake Champlain and you're on a paddleboard and you're over 12 years of age, you can have your PFD strapped to the front of the board. This would basically say if you're out there in April, you would need to be wearing your PFD. So. Okay. Other questions?
Thank you for writing this down.
It's my job.
Oh, is Mr. Johnson here?
Yes, I'm here.
That's important. It's the one. So did you want Justin? I think Justin first. And they got Justin first. I thought that was.
Yeah, they just let me show first.
What's the board, what I'm saying, is that what I said? Yeah.
Good morning. This is my first time doing this, so I'm prepared.
Well, you're welcome here anytime. And you need to give your name and a little background and then go right into it.
Thank you. My name is Jess Lucas, and I'm the Director of Aquatics at the Greater Burlington YMCA. Thank you so much for not only having me, but for the clear and serious recognition you're giving to this very important bill. I am here today in support of that bill that proposes to require all individuals on board a vessel between November 1st and May 1st to wear a personal flotation device. We do not talk about water safety the same way we instill in adults car seat education. We do not talk about water safety in the same way we fit children for bicycle helmets and tell them why it's so critical to wear them when riding. We do not talk about water safety in the same way we explain to look both ways before crossing the street. We do not talk about water safety Drowning is a silent tragedy. Prevention of drowning is also possible, but it requires time, coordinated effort, money, and state level leadership, as stated in the 2022 report of water safety in Vermont, published by Safe Kids Vermont. What began as a collaborative partnership between the Vermont Child Fatality Review Team and Safe Kids Vermont has grown into the Water Safety Action Committee, which for the past 3 years has worked to identify reasons for the morbidity and mortality of children and adults from drowning and water recreational activities. Vermont has limited state level legislation related to water safety. As a result, guidance often relies on local ordinances, insurance company mandates, and/or personal choice. The Water Safety Action Committee works through a coordinated partnership that includes Safe Kids Vermont, Vermont Child Fatality Review Boards, the Greater Burlington YMCA, Live Like Benjo Foundation, Goslenos Children's Hospital, the Vermont Department of Health, University of Vermont Network, Vermont State Police Marine Division, and Swim Like Annie Incorporated. Together, we are working to reduce unintentional drowning deaths, hospitalizations, and emergency department visits throughout the state. Our goal is simple: to prevent drowning in our communities. Vermont has 7,100 miles of rivers and streams, 242,219 acres of lakes, reservoirs, ponds, and 300,000 acres of freshwater wetlands. The moment the sun comes out and air temperatures rise, we are enjoying the outdoors. We do not come inside until the snow falls, and even at that, we still venture out. Currently, only children under the age of 13 are required to wear a life jacket when boats are underway. This bill proposes for cold weather on or before May 1st of each year and on or after November 1st of each year, all individuals aboard a vessel while underway and the individual is on an open deck shall wear a properly secured, wearable, U.S. Coast Guard approved personal flotation device as intended by the manufacturer. As a committee, cold water life jacket legislation became a primary focus because of its attainability. There are 0 reasons to not take this small step to protect one another. It is simple, it is effective, and it saves lives. Cold water shock is a major factor in boating fatalities when water temperatures are less than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold water shock causes an involuntary gasp, often resulting in aspiration of water, hyperventilation, breathlessness, and a reduced ability to control your breathing and swim. A life jacket greatly increases your chance for survival in cold water, while also increasing the amount of time to be rescued. A life jacket buys us time. It keeps you afloat if you lose your sense of recognition of what to do next. When disorientation or panic takes over, a life jacket can help. In cold water, when the body and brain are no longer working together, a life jacket can mean the difference between life and death. Life jackets are the extra layer of protection that could save us. In closing, as a representative of the Water Safety Action Committee, I believe safety is all of our responsibilities. I support this bill because we truly want everyone to get home safely each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice job.
Trip here. It's nothing graceful about watching a 6'5" human being go down.
Yay.
Visual aids. You pull the handle, you will get a really big surprise. I don't recommend it right now. Think of the afternoon.
Oh, wow. Comes with fries in like that.
We're a morning committee, so there won't be anybody here.
They're
So-
high. We all need some good. I do. Nice. Something nice in your keys down.
The Vermont Voting Laws and Responsibilities Handbook. Right.
You're trying to pull the little.
Oh dear.
Hold on for a second.
Put this back in your bag. Don't trust yourself, James.
No, I want to pull that thing better.
I think that's great.
I don't think it opens, so.
Oops.
Okay, a little bit.
Okay. Yes. I'm a Teams guy.
Here for.
Yeah.
You're sharing, so you're,
Can you see it? Oh, okay. Okay, perfect.
you just exile
This.
that thing,
Okay.
then you can go to your PowerPoint, see.
Yeah, I'll put it in full screen louder. Yeah. That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Plus we have it too.
And you have it. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay, for the record, my name is Al Johnson. I'm the voting law administrator, also known as the BLA for the state of Vermont. I'm based in public safety and I'm part of the Vermont State Police Marine Division. We're here to talk about S-172, the importance of life jacket wear in cold weather. I'm going to go through some of the science and the reality of what we're doing here. So physiological reality, this is about cold shock. Jess mentioned a little bit, cold shock is the first initial response when you go into exceedingly cold water. She mentioned 70 degrees, you know, ooh, that's a refreshing feeling when we all jump in June when the lake is still kind of cool. And then below 50 when it's really serious business. Immersion in cold water causes involuntary gasping reflex. That gasping reflex often makes people intake or aspirate water, and it does not take a lot of water to be aspirated to begin a drowning sequence. Even a strong swimmer, the myth of being a strong swimmer in cold water is quite problematic because the different stages of cold water shock really render you helpless in the water, even if you're physically capable. So the first minute is the cold shock response. Cold incapacitation, cold water causes blood to rush to the core. That blood is trying to protect your vital organs. So what it's doing is it's starving your legs and your feet and your hands and your arms. So if you're in the water for that first 10 minutes and you're trying to tread water, you're trying to self-rescue, you're trying to swim, you have a very small window of being able to help yourself.
It's 50 degrees.
Yeah, I've got a slide I'll show you. 50 degrees is that really dangerous zone, and it coincides with the dates that are proposed in the language in the bill. And then misconception about hypothermia. Most folks believe that they will die of hypothermia hours later. Most water fatalities happen far before hypothermia sets in. It's really cold shock, cold immersion that really causes drowning in cold water. So this 1-10-1 principle explains the time frame. It is controlled breathing to avoid drowning from the initial shock. That initial shock, some people actually go into cardiac arrest also, and that's obviously not something you can prepare for. So it's a dice roll. 10 minutes in is where swim failure happens. If you're not out of the water and trying to get warm or have somebody helping you, you are really in trouble. And that's about the end of the line for a lot of folks. And then an hour later is hypothermia. Hypothermia, when your body temperature, your core temperature really starts to slow down, which ultimately leads to dizziness and then unconsciousness. So the water doesn't need to be freezing. Cold water shock can happen at 70 degrees or below. It's very severe at 50 degrees. This chart shows the average temperatures in Lake Champlain. If you think about the smaller lakes and ponds in Vermont, a lot of them tend to cool down actually faster in the fall and warm up a little slower in the springtime because the ice goes out later.
So this red line here on the slide is that 50-degree Fahrenheit line. So November's here, cold, 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 and it doesn't get back up to 50 until May. So as far as data and effectiveness go, the high fatality rate without life jackets, this is in broad brush strokes in all recreational boating. The data indicates that 75 to 87% of drowning victims in boating accidents were not wearing a life jacket, and that's from the Coast Guard's data. Life jackets do save lives. The Coast Guard estimates that 80% of boating fatalities could be prevented if people were just wearing life jackets. And it's accessibility versus wear. This is just like when you get into your car, before you drive down the road, after you start it, before you put it in reverse, what do we all do? We put our seatbelt on. If it's a windy day and you slide off the road, you don't get to buckle your seatbelt when you're in the process. Even worse, if you were to be in a head-on accident and you did not have a seatbelt on, there's no chance it's going to be applied. That can impact your life, your health, and can impact the way the systems of your car are designed to help keep you safe too. So a life jacket is doing the same thing on the water. If you don't have it on and something happens rapidly, especially if you're alone on the water, you're kind of out of luck. There's some great videos on the internet of folks that do tests with 5 or 6 healthy average people. They say jump in the water and they throw them a life jacket and they say, okay, put it on when you're in the water. And it's a very difficult thing to do. I'm a lifelong boater, a lifelong surfer. I've tried it. It's really hard. And I'm really tall too. So that's even worse. And then the behavioral impact here. The research indicates that mandatory legislation is the most effective way to affect behavior change. And behavior change is really what we're after here. We want other people to kind of wear their life jackets consistently and ideally in all weather, not just cold weather. Safety versus convenience. The false sense of security is, this is really, I've got some anecdotal stories here for a couple of these, which are unfortunately related to fatalities. Warm air temperatures in the spring, which are common in Vermont, where the water is still really cold. In April of 2021, there were 3 folks that went on a rowboat on Lewis Creek. The air temperature was 60, the water temperature was 35. There was a youth on the boat wearing a life jacket, and he was with his 2 grandparents. The boat somehow went over a small sluiceway, and everyone wound up in the water. The grandfather was able to save the child and get him to shore. He went back out to rescue his wife, and they both perished because of the cold water. And it's absolutely heartbreaking because for that young person, that is a memory that never goes away. The next one is the heavy clothing trap. When you're recreating on the water in cold weather, you have a lot of layers on. If you go over the side or you somehow get in the water, those layers immediately absorb water. They help pull you down because of the weight of the materials on you. And that's during that 10-minute period where you're trying to do anything you can to save yourself. In October 24, on Rude Pond in Williamstown, we had a gentleman out duck hunting, and air temperature was 50 and the water was about 40. This person was not a great swimmer, wasn't wearing a life jacket. He wound up capsizing, and a rescue attempt was made from shore by family members with another kayak, and it happened so fast. By the time they got to him, his layers of warm clothes were saturated, and he was not a strong swimmer anyway, and he wound up drowning. And then paddlecraft are the ultimate risk because the chance of self-rescue for paddlecraft is very low. Canoes, kayaks, stand-up paddleboards, the risk of capsizing is super high. Requiring mandatory use here would really help these folks if they find themselves in a bad position. Policy and practicality. So this is the existing precedent. These are states in the Northeast region of the US that currently have mandatory cold water wear periods. Most of them are around November 1st to May 1st, like we're proposing. This map is from my national organization, NASBLA. It's the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. So each state in the country has a boating law administrator like myself. We gather and we can work on all kinds of levels. So the exceptions in the Northeast are Vermont and New Hampshire. Policy and practicality continued. So these laws protect voters during the most dangerous time of the year. We're going to simplify compliance. A mandatory wear law removes ambiguity. Everybody just needs to have a life jacket on. Ensuring all passengers are protected rather than relying on quick decision making during a panic. It reduces the burden on rescuers. A life jacket increases visibility in the water, making rescue operations faster and safer for emergency personnel. Personally, part of my team at the state police is the underwater recovery team, and the less they go out, the happier I am, because they are not going out to save people; they're going to recover bodies. And then enforcement. As far as enforcement goes, although enforcement is not the primary goal here, behavior changes. Vermont game wardens are often on the water, especially in the fall season of fishing and hunting. They can conduct compliance work through their regular checks. There's no extra need for funding or staff. It's just part of the checklist when they encounter somebody on the water or at the boat ramp, during fishing season or waterfowl season. And then this is a success story about Pennsylvania, who in 2012 instituted a law similar to what we're talking about. In the last few years, they've had a 50% reduction in cold water deaths because of mandatory life jacket laws. And that's per the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. I talked to my BLA colleague yesterday in Pennsylvania. He said he was, very happy at the way it's been going. He says he can't believe why more states don't do this. Just as far as other information is concerned, this is a project I did in collaboration with my former colleagues at the Vermont Health Department, where I used to work. This is expanding and refining recreational boating data in Vermont. We received a grant from the Safe States Alliance to kind of broaden the scope of what we know for injuries on the water. The Coast Guard in their accident reporting system is a very narrow view. This report covers other data sources, Vermont Vital Records, Essence, the Siren EMS data in Vermont, walk-in clinic data. And this is so we can get a full view of what the actual number of incidents on the water is. This doesn't change the number of deaths because vital statistics is the record that we use. However, the numbers that we found in this pilot project were that there's a 10x occurrence of incidents on the water where people seek care or are injured or their property damage that is basically not reported through the Coast Guard system. And then there's some other voting information here that you're welcome to look at. The Vermont voting statutes are in Title 23. The public use of waterways, those are crafted and run by Environmental Conservation. Our Marine Unit has a great webpage. Fish and Wildlife has a great voting page, as well as education information. NASWA, my national organizations out there, and the Coast Guard voting safety website is quite valuable as well. That's all I have for you today.
Question, given the law the way it is now, and we just check to make sure we get this right. Kids have to wear flotation devices in the summer. There has to be devices on a boat for everyone.
Correct.
How much enforcement is going on? Our game wardens and the state police and have there been tickets handed out? What's going on?
Yeah. So as far as patrols go, through the grant that I administer, it funds patrols on Lake Champlain and all the other ponds and waterways in Vermont, and that includes the state police, Fish and Wildlife. We have a sub-grant with the Colchester Police, and they have a full-time person on in Colchester, Mallets Bay area, which is the busiest marine hub on Lake Champlain, sees the most traffic and the most incidents, and also the Grand County Sheriff's Department, who covers all the area up in the islands, which is a great deal of coastline and water access. We are patrolling from May 15 until September 15. When you're on the water, once you get to about Labor Day or the week before, the traffic level really goes down.
Yeah, it goes down.
And the amount of traffic on the lake is an important part of being rescued if you find yourself in the water. Once everybody puts their boat away and the kids are back to school, there's very few people out there. So any kind of preparedness or prevention activity you can undertake is going to help your outcome.
So, and Do you have any idea of how many tickets were handed out?
Oh, so I have full data on that, and if that's something you're interested, I can show it to you. Basically, what we do is we do vessel inspections and then we do stops when the officers are out patrolling. I'm not a sworn officer, I'm a civilian, but I work with all of them very closely. So mandatory wear, if they do a vessel stop and there's a mandatory wear violation, there is always a citation issued, because that is the most important responsibility a parent has for a child under 13 to have like that on them. That and, the whole gamut of violations that are in statute. If you want numbers and data, just let me know and I can get
Yeah,
that for
I
you.
think it would be helpful at the background.
Yeah, sure.
A list of people doing patrols not under state control, but the Coast Guard is also doing.
Yes, the Coast Guard is out there. They have their one installation in Burlington for Lake Champlain, and they also have boats, trailer boats, to get to Lake Memphremagog, because that's a federal waterway, and they have a response. And we have a boat up there too, but they are also responsible for that, and Wallace Pond. But yeah, so we have folks spread all over the lake to fill in all the spots and have the ability to respond quickly to incidents on the water. Once our boats are out of the water, it's a completely different scenario. At all of our barracks in the patrol season, we have small vessels. They're basically 18-foot aluminum boats without boards, and they can pull them right behind a cruiser. There's one at each barracks. If there's a local emergency, they can get a boat in the water. Once it's the off season, those boats are stored away. So everything changes.
And then your map of the Northeast, is that those are the states that had this law nationwide, or are you just focused on the Northeast? There are other states.
These are the ones that are nationwide. It's interesting that in the northern tier, in the central part of the country, does not have this type of law. The way voting programs are run in different parts of the country are very, very different from Vermont. We are a small state, we're a seasonal state, we are a freshwater state. My colleague across Lake Champlain, Alexi Howland, who's the BLA in New York, has Lake Erie, she has Long Island Sound and all that area. So
Minnesota, Wisconsin,
Exactly.
lakes and boating activity in the cold.
yeah, maybe it just freezes so fast out there. I'm not sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the work that you do in general. It's always interesting to meet where folks are in state government.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that your position exists and that you're able to provide us an overview. We had a very unfortunate drowning in my community over the summer and of a young person, and it was devastating for the community. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to what had surprised me, which was basically the cost associated with responding to a drowning. It required multiple vehicles on site, multiple responses from different communities. It required lengthy work afterwards, and also just the shock to the people who were the first responders on scene. I'm wondering if you could just kind of quantify that side of things, because I think what I hear from folks who would be against this is well, I don't want to have to be required to wear a life vest. I'm a good swimmer, whatever. I don't need it. Why is the government making me do it? But my thought has been, well, you haven't been there when the first responders have to come out and the devastation that can follow. So I'm wondering if you can speak kind of to that side of it.
It's funny because what you're talking about from my work in public health, it included prevention work related to tobacco. And one of the most powerful marketing programs that they had was the Truth campaign, Truth from Real Smokers who have disease. I mean, you could do something like that. But to give you an example, just kind of a scale of a recovery of someone who's drowned. A couple of years ago in Mallets Bay on 4th of July weekend, there was a real tragic incident where a father and his two kids were out on a blow-up raft. It was really windy. The dad went over the side and wound up sinking and was lost. The kids were luckily recovered by a Good Samaritan sailboat that was anchored nearby. And then the recovery began. And because of the wind and the kind of the turbidity of Mallets Bay, the body drifted pretty far. The water there is 50 to 60 feet deep in the inner bay. The visibility is generally 10 feet or less. So the first part of the recovery is making sure any survivors are safe, getting our underwater recovery team staged in there. So that involves a couple trucks, a couple trailers, inflatable vessels, in an area like that, it includes patrol vessels to block marine traffic and create a search zone. And then the searching begins, and we use divers, we use underwater sonar devices that are towed, and we do search patterns. And that recovery took days.
Yeah, exactly.
And that had a response from Colchester, the state police, Fish and Wildlife, and the Coast Guard. Everyone kind of was involved in that because it was about 2.5 days until they recovered the body. And, you know, if you can picture Mallett's Bay, if you're familiar with the area, there's a whole section of the bay that was unavailable the 4th of July weekend with just boats and lights and people in the water. Quantifying it, I wouldn't want to put a dollar amount on it, but it's significant. And there's the maintenance of equipment and maintaining a trained dive team that has to do this kind of hard work. Does that answer your question?
That does,
Okay.
and I think.
It's a little graphic, but it's.
Well,
like,
I mean, I
paints the
think
whole
that's what
picture.
people don't realize is like, you might think even, you know, it only impacts me, but whatever happens on the water, there's tons of people who have to shift whatever they're doing and respond. So
Right,
if you have a life jacket and they can kick out, that's a lot better than,
sure.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
And that's really tragic. I had not heard that story.
And, you know, our goal is at the end of the day is that everybody comes home at the end of the day to their family from a day on the water. I'm attached to a lot of groups on social media, and there are Lake Champlain boaters out there currently asking each other, where is there open water so I can go fishing? They're out there right now in the parts of the lake that are not frozen. And right now they're starting to run out of boat ramps, which is probably good for their safety, but it's not good for their fishing hobby, which I understand. We all have hobbies that we're passionate about.
Yeah, and I can tell you for a fact that that was an eye opener. I live in Mounts Bay.
Okay, yeah.
So, drove by there during the search, knew the father.
Oh,
So that was a community, devastating to the community. So, and I didn't realize that, well, I guess I didn't realize that it wasn't mandatory. I knew it for adults, but having seen what went on there, I said, you know, if I ever, you're not going to find me out there in November, probably. If you did, everybody on the boat would be wearing, after seeing that,
right.
flotation device. So
Yeah, I mean, the life jacket, I handed around. I don't know where it went.
it's in the bag.
Okay. The great thing about that is a inflatable life jacket. You can leave it on manual and pull the T handle. You can set it on automatic. If it gets wet, it will inflate. So that, you know, in the winter, that's an ideal scenario. Especially if you're alone. You need every advantage you can get. And if you're an outdoors person and you're hunting waterfowl, they come in camouflage. I mean, they're part of the whole costume to get you to be successful in your hunting trip and keep you safe. And I mean, Valentine's Day is coming up. All the people in each other's lives, it would be a great
Oh.
Valentine's gift. You know, if you're a hunter or a fisher,
Give your loved one-
get your partner a life jacket that inflates and it's camo cool and they can still like be who they are. You know, there's no reason. That's the thing. There's no reason not to do this. Unless you want to be stubborn, I guess.
One more question. I was given 3 of those red ones just like that. Do they have an expiration date?
They don't have an expiration. There is a gauge that goes from green to red of when the cartridge, the CO2 cartridge that inflates it, has to be replaced.
Okay.
The cartridge generally will have a date on it as well.
Yeah.
So it may read green. It's the same with a fire extinguisher. It might be dated, but it still shows green. So if you look at those and you just put in your calendar, check every year, check the date on my cartridge, on my life jacket and replace it. They're really easy to replace. They just kind of screw in there.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I think we're done and you've been very informative.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate your attention to this matter. It's something that's very close to my heart and the way I recreate and the way I do my job. So thank you.
Thank you for the sea salt caramels. They're my favorite.
Yeah.
Nobody else will get this.
No, I'll pass.
The committee work is long. I know that. So. Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep. There you go.
No, I did, I.
Is
Maybe
Logan
perhaps-
around? If he's not,
I did not hear that.
you put the-
That was pretty bad. I drove by there. Oh, I drive by there every day, twice a day, and I saw this sort of going.
Thank you.
That was.
Yeah, I did not realize until we had like it felt like every vehicle.
Megan,
Thank-
is that okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate the assistance.
Okay, thank you for the safety data thing. I got.
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm just gonna grab this. Oh, yeah, yeah, I do. And be polite about it.
Right here.
Right.
You're supposed to tell us what's in the deal.
Yeah.
Build the cosmetic.
Well, yes, I.
Ready?
Usually,
You don't.
we usually do that.
It's not easy.
No, then there's a.
Put your hand. I do not have a hand up today.
Okay.
Nope. So for the record, Logan Murray, the Joint Fiscal Office. I don't have a fiscal note for you yet, given the sort of state of the bill and the changes and stuff like that. We're also waiting for some data, working with the DMV. But I am going to walk you through the sections that I've highlighted that will likely be in the fiscal notes, mention sort of the rough estimates I have now, and then take any questions if there are questions about those. So the first section that I want to highlight is section, well, 2 and 3 together. This is the replacement license and then the learner's permit. You all heard, I believe yesterday from a couple of groups about this. This would expand sort of the replacement that these individuals can receive. So they could get a learner's permit or a driver's license. You heard that there's estimated about 500 people per year sort of were eligible for this. There's likely won't be much of a cost associated with these sections just because they are already doing this for the non-driver ID. The only real sort of revenue loss that they could see is that as it is right now, one of these individuals would get the non-driver's ID, but then they would have to go and apply or buy the driver's ID. So there might be some loss of revenue related to these individuals not.
Do you know the fee for a driver's license?
So there's a 2 and 4 year, I believe it's like $39 for the 2 year and $62. So I think if all 500, my rough math is all 500 went and got a 4 year driver's license, that'd be around $30,000 a year. So, relatively minor. I do want to still look into this, a little bit more just to make sure I'm catching everything there, but that's sort of the rough math on that one. Oh, I should also mention, I'm working off of draft 1.1. I saw there was an updated one on the agenda, but
And I only have 1.1.
okay, perfect.
I have 2.1.
Oh,
Yeah, 2.1
2.1 is there today. Oh.
whenever today.
I did not have that when I was going through this, so I'm working on 1.1. Hopefully Damon will go through any changes, but to the extent that it's changed since 1.1, obviously my states will need to be affected. The next section is 5. This is the license plate. And 1.1 is sort of the elimination of the one license plate down, or 2 license plate down to just a single license plate. I spoke with DMV and got some data from them. The estimate is around, it would save around $175,000 a year due to sort of manufacturing cost reductions as well as mailing reductions. Can get into more of the specifics on that, but we're going with around 175,000 as right now if the state were to go to one license plate.
Go ahead.
So do you mind just going, I'm a little confused. So it's a savings of $175,000
Yeah.
overall.
Yep.
And they had that, how does that show up in their budget now? Do they bank those savings in their budget or?
No, so
Oh, okay.
the DMV budget is based off of the forecasted revenue for the entire T fund together. They get a portion of that. It's not like specific to fees or revenues that they collect. I don't imagine they have included this in the forecast estimate. I'm guessing they built their budget off of the forecasted estimate, so I don't know that the savings would generate a change in the forecast next year, but it would be a slight reduction to their sort of operating
Oh, okay, it's interesting.
budget to expenses, but it isn't directly in their budget this year, I guess, if that answers your question.
Thank you for that clarification. I was wrong yesterday when I said that to the DMV commissioner. That should get to be corrected.
Okay, section 6. This is the smuggler's notch penalty. The JFO doesn't estimate out forecast or the fees and penalties just because the ideal amount is $0, but likely increasing this will generate some additional revenue. Hopefully no one.
Well, we hope it doesn't.
Hope it doesn't, but I just want to point that out there. After that, section 13. This one I need to look into a little more. This expands the essentially adds that state agencies to this list of people in which the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles shall notify the Commissioner of Finance and Management, who shall issue payments, towing services, or state agencies as applicable. I'm not quite sure the scope that this would apply to or how much. It's $125 as of right now. I don't imagine this will be a large cost increase, but highlighting the year. And then the largest one that I noticed in this draft is section 16, and that is related to the purchase and use, and specifically sort of adding trailers to, well, clarifying that trailers are under the purchase and use tax, but then also, as it stands now, trailers are capped at the amount of purchase and use. They reach that, by the number here, 2,000 whatever dollars, 2,486. So current practice is they pay purchase and use, but only up to the cap of 2,486. This change would add them into those list of vehicles there that are not essentially under that cap. So vehicles that, if you do the math, 6% of their purchase value is greater than 2,486 would going forward have to pay the full amount. They would no longer just be capped at 2,000. So this would generate some revenue for the state. I'm working with the DMV to try to figure out numbers on trailers registered and that pay it every year, and then also the average sort of values of trailers, so we can try to determine how much more purchase and use tax this would generate for the state. You did hear from a couple of people, I think yesterday maybe, that we're also talking about this. So this is the one that we need to dig into a little bit more and look into the data before I can present like a solid number.
So, well,
No, yeah.
most of the trailers around here are registered in Maine.
Yes, that's.
So, it would be helpful to understand what Maine does. And I hear complaints from people all the time saying that, you know, and Maine has got some corner on the market around it, and I don't totally understand what, I know that their rate is way lower than everybody else. But it would be nice to understand why the whole country loses business to Maine and what they do.
Sure, I can look into Maine and bring some information to the committee on that.
That was my exact question.
Okay.
Because will we lose even more people to the other states if
Yeah.
we do this? Like, let's see, we might get maybe a little bit more, but we're probably gonna lose people who are registered, so.
What do we gain by doing this in you know,
We talked about that years ago,
right?
and I think it's got something to do with I don't think you have to be domiciled in Maine to register a truck there. That's why here, I think you do. Well, no, you don't because they just set up something in Maine, but yeah, it's done.
It would be interesting to be able to,
Yeah.
that may be a Damien question to figure out or get us somebody to do that. But it would be nice to spend a few minutes just to figure out what it is. I hear about it all the time.
Bet you it's good, but I mean,
Continuing on. 17, this is another penalty for snowmobiles. So again, just want to point out that there'll likely be some, hopefully none, but likely some from that. And then lastly, section 19, which adds this sort of 1-year fee for a non-domiciled CDL license. Previously, we only had 4 and 2. This would make it a little like higher per year charge. I think the numbers of people that issue these every year are very low. DMV said in 2025 it was 16. So again, this would likely be a very de minimis sector.
I was wondering when the word de minimis would come.
It'll be there. So those are the main sections. Again, there's still some outstanding questions and some data that I need to put together a official and sort of a final fiscal note, but I'll be working to get you all that shortly. And then I'll work with Ledge Council on the main and trailers, and we can sort of work into that as well.
Sure.
Yes.
I think I was reading something else maybe on the snowmobile. How did we have the number of penalties? Can you just say that?
I didn't, just because our office doesn't normally like estimate out penalties because you hope that no one does it. I could look into that and sort of see what we have this year.
I can ask fast when I came in.
Yeah, they might be a good resource for that as well.
Do we have a past schedule?
Yes,
Good.
tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
And I will also look into 2.1, the updated draft, to the extent that the language has changed and the impact any of the fiscal estimates of that.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, since we are discussing the every other year inspections piece, and kind of that general concept, and we got some numbers from the chief financial officer yesterday. I'm wondering if we can request some kind of fiscal note or consideration, since we are going to be having that conversation in general.
We're gonna spend a lot of time.
I believe I'm in on Thursday to speak about
Oh,
that.
well, never mind that. It's already. Thank you.
Give us.
That's all I had. If there are questions, happy to answer them. And I'll work on those things as requested.
Thanks.
Of course.
Next. All right.
One.
All right, good morning. Again, I'm still Damien Leonard, still from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So you should have a new draft 2.1 of the miscellaneous motor vehicle bill. A couple of changes that were made since the last draft. First, I added a statement of purpose, since that needs to be in the bill draft. So that adds about a page to the draft. The next change in the bill, and I'll go back through the sections one by one. I just want to highlight where the changes are. In sections 2 and 3, based on the DOC concerns raised with the language around licenses for inmates and learner's permits for inmates, the renewal of those, I've updated the language so it tracked with the existing language on non-driver IDs. So that the language is the same now, an individual sentenced to serve a period of imprisonment of 6 months or more committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections. So this would exclude detainees. I have not had a chance to run it by DOC yet, so you will want to get them to check this. And I'll touch base on that as I go through the section.
Is this for 2.1?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, you all have a little chart that includes section by section summary and then bullet points on outstanding issues or notes about the section.
Okay.
The other change here is in section 5 with the license plates. The section is still there, but we've taken out the proposed language that would shift us to a 1 license plate requirement. And so now it again goes back to the existing language, which says either 1 or 2 license plates as the commissioner may require, noting that there are certain laws that do require 2 plates.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Is a question for the committee, but also you didn't, why would we have it as a one or the other? Is there ever a time that it would only be one, or is that like the tractor trailers where they don't have the fat plate because they have a trailer plate?
I think they actually do have that plate.
They also have the one they're driving.
Just when they're driving without a trailer.
Is there ever a time when they would issue just 1 plate?
So we have created exceptions for 1 plate for like the Vermont Strong plates. There
I feel like
are,
they're 2 plates. I mean, the Vermont Strong has to be in front of the plate. So I'm just, is there ever a time where the commissioner would want or need to issue just 1 plate?
so there are sections of the statute where it's silent as to how many, and so I would read it as it could be 1 or 2. There are sections of the statute where it says 2 plates, so I would read that as 2. So the statute currently provides discretion in some instances to the commissioner.
So I would propose that we clean that up. If we're not gonna move to 1 plate, to also have it to where the commissioner just, that part of that statute just says 2 plates.
I think what we're going to end up doing is having a whole discussion about plates in general. And I will say, I spoke with Damien this morning and asked him if he could research what some other states do, give us some options, or if, because we have a number of plate things out there.
Right.
So you should, it may not end up in this bill, but in general, we're going to have, and we'll end up spending a couple of days on where we really are as a committee, on with plates.
Right, well, probably talk to you about proposing an amendment.
Yep.
But it's always been a weird part of the statute.
Well, and I totally into, but I
Yeah,
think
I get it.
the whole issue of plates, because I think around the table, there are a lot of people, all different positions
Sure.
all over.
Yeah.
And we do have, hopefully, we will get a clearer view of what the DMV feels about all of these plate issues on it, and we'll have a proposal. I think the commissioner might have suggested that on the front plate there, they might have a proposal. I haven't heard in detail or anything, might have a proposal about opening up, letting people do various things. And I'm not sure how this committee will come down with that.
Okay.
But we're gonna go through all of the scenarios.
Okay, that's good.
So that, the remainder of that section deals with the coloring or tinting of license plates. And so that was left in. Those are the changes from the first draft you looked at. I can walk you back through the, section by section highlights and the notes that we have for outstanding items there, if that's helpful.
I have a question about obscuring of the license plate. Well, the statute says you can't obscure.
Yes.
In the commissioner from his days as a trooper said he'd written tickets just with a clear covering. But I wondered if, I don't know if that there's ever been a challenge to that. But I wondered if a clear covering is considered obscure.
So, the language itself says that you cannot,
I'm talking about existing statute.
yeah,
Okay.
and it is, in the bill itself. So in, page 9, 2A, the current law provides that the number plate shall be kept entirely unobscured and the numerals and letters on the, thereon shall be plainly legible at all times. So I think there's two pieces there, that it has to be kept unobscured. And I think you go to sort of the definition of obscured, but also plainly legible. So if the clear covering makes it so that it's not plainly legible, I think that there's also grounds at that point for law enforcement to cite you.
What if it's legible to the human eye, but not to a camera?
And I think that our statute is not clear, on that. I don't know of any case law on this. So obscure means to keep from being seen or to conceal. And so one thing to consider here is that if your concern is with obscuring it from a camera by providing something that would, have glare that would basically blank out the numerals or letters for a camera.
Or something like that covers, like you can't see.
Exactly.
From this angle, but from this angle you can.
Exactly. We could look at better language or changes to the language to make it clear that we're including cameras and we're also including things where if you're looking at the plate straight on, it's clear, but if you're looking at it from an angle and looking down, or if there's a light shining on it, a lot of the cameras when you go through like a toll booth or when there's toll overhangs, there's a flash.
Yeah.
And if there's plastic over that, the flash will reflect off that. We could look at language on that. I've not looked at what other states do on this, but I know that the coverings are prohibited in some, but not all states.
Right. I would think New York would have something on it because tolls on bridges and everything is such a big issue, and they avoid the cost is so high. People are being creative on how to avoid it. So I would,
Yeah,
I'd be interested in looking at what they've done.
I will look at,
New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had constituents who have been on the other end of that, where a vehicle that is not theirs has gone through, and then it's because of something they've done to the license plate, it's saying it's their license plate, and then they're getting all these fees essentially from the toll booth. Yeah, I have had a constituent who's been trying to debate the Massachusetts government around, I've never been to this part of Massachusetts. It's not my vehicle, it was someone else, and it's their understanding is because the person has some kind of selective.
So covering, would that include everything or?
Well, that's the question. What does obscure mean? Because there are some people that just want to, like, I don't know, keep the license plate clean, or maybe they're trying to prevent.
Well,
Maybe with plastic covering, it's.
I've seen some license plates that are particularly on the front of the vehicle that have got so beat up that it's hard to read them.
Yeah.
And if somebody put, I don't know, some clear plastic over it to protect it.
And maybe it's up to the officer whether they think it's obscure.
Yeah, I have no real opinion on it, just asking.
My main concern is if we move to automatic traffic law enforcement, which I support for some certain circumstances, that this becomes an issue.
Okay.
okay. So I will look at that. I put it on what is becoming a very long list of items to research and follow up with you on.
Both miscellaneous.
Yeah, you guys are gonna keep me busy for the next few weeks here. So
That's what you know, I will say, this is the time of year you should expect to be busy.
it is. It's good to have lots of interesting things like this to dig into. So I'll see what I can find out for you. I know there is some multi-state data out there from groups like NCSL on 1 plate versus 2 plate states, and I'll see if they have additional information and then start digging into, for example, what are the 1 plate states doing about regulations on front plates, or dealing with some of the proposals we've seen around plates to raise funds for certain issues, as well as what are the states that have automated traffic law enforcement or toll systems doing about obscuring or otherwise preventing plates from being read, whether it's by a camera or a law enforcement officer. So just to back up and go through the bill really quick, section 1, as a reminder, this was the non-driver IDs, and it's adding language that would clarify that you can't have a non-driver ID and an operator's license at the same time. And I believe DMV testified yesterday or the day before that this is to bring us into compliance with some federal requirements to ensure that you don't have multiple state issued IDs at the same time. Is that right? Yep. Right. So sections 2 and 3 were to permit individuals who are incarcerated, so sentenced for 6 months or more in prison, to get a replacement license in certain instances. So with the license, it's if they have a current license or a license that has expired less than 3 years before. With the learner's permit, it's a current learner's permit or one that expired less than 2 years before. The DOC has recommended updating the terminology. The most recent draft includes that language. House Corrections and Institutions has this scheduled for review tomorrow, so there may be some more commentary from them. And my understanding is that Senate Institutions is planning to look at the language, but have not put it on their agenda yet.
Well, we've got some time.
Yeah, and of course, the chair of Senate Institutions is a member of this committee, so she's very aware of the issue.
I suspect she is.
Yeah. Section 4 is the language on insufficient funds that permits DMV to temporarily suspend a license or registration if an electronic payment does not go through. They currently have that language for checks. There was some discussion in the committee about some of the issues currently with delays that banking institutions will put on actually making funds available and how that might impact it. DMV also testified about their timeline on a fourth address. Let's see, the section 5 we were just talking about, that's the prohibition on tinting and coloring the license plate or the numbers or letters on the plate. As I mentioned, DMV has also requested the switch to a single plate. There's also the Vermont Green license plate bill, and as the chair indicated, we'll be doing a deeper dive on license plates. Section 6 are the increased penalties for operating a prohibited vehicle, so a long box truck or semi-trailer in Smuggler's Notch. And that is increasing the penalties by 10 times, from 1,000 for operation and 2,000 if you substantially impede traffic, i.e. get stuck, to 10,000 and 20,000 respectively, and adding a moving violation there, which would allow them to assess points against the operator. We do have outstanding questions about whether that penalty may be too high, and I'm going to do some research on case law around what reasonableness of penalties and when you may have a constitutional issue. There are also other concerns that have been brought up related to the chicanes, signage, and the condition of the gates, that, control access during the winter months.
So when you're on this sheet and you say too high, you mean legal, not just,
Yeah, whether the proposed penalty may be too high, I should have said, or may present constitutional issues. Apologize. This was
no,
me writing this last night.
that's fine. I just wanted to.
So the language may be less formal than we might like. Section 7 relates to the moving violation that is proposed to be added in section 6, and it would add a 5-point assessment. As a reminder, if you get 10 points within a certain period of time, and I forget exactly how short that is, your license can then be suspended. That's the lowest level for a suspension. It's a relatively short suspension, but this would bring you halfway to a license suspension. Section 8 is the language that was proposed by Copart. That would permit electronic signatures on certain documents needed to provide a salvage title to the insurer when a vehicle has been declared a total loss. DMV is proposing revised language. I have not had a chance to draft it and present it to the committee for review. That will be ready by next week. So that's just a flag that this is something we'll need to go back to. And I believe you've got testimony scheduled from Copart at this point, or you're trying to get them in. And then 9 would be an update to the duplicate title language that would allow the DMV to hand a person the duplicate motor vehicle title if they're actually at a DMV location. Currently, they would have to mail it, so you go into the DMV and then you have to wait for the duplicate title to arrive in the mail. 10 does the same thing for vessels, snowmobiles, and ATVs. And I realized yesterday as I was going back through the bill that the title definition for that chapter needs to be updated, because even though the chapter relates to snowmobiles, ATVs, and vessels, I believe my bullet here says does not include snowmobiles and vessels. I think it actually should say snowmobiles and ATVs. But either way, it only includes one type of vehicle. And I think that's just an oversight in the definition. So just as a technical change while we're in there, that should probably be updated.
Can you say the section?
So that's section 10 of the bill.
But it wouldn't affect section, so that would also go, that would be section 9 and section.
It's just section 10.
Oh.
So current section 10 is intended to allow you to hand the duplicate title for vessels, snowmobiles, and ATVs if they're at a DMV location. However, the term that's used there, the title or certificate of title is defined to be the title of a vessel and not to include, doesn't include titles to snowmobiles and ATVs. So for purposes of just ensuring the statute is clear and doesn't have a loophole in it that was unintended, you should likely go back and update the definition, because the whole chapter there relates to titling those 3 types of vehicles.
Okay.
But the duplicate title provision only applies to one type of vehicle with the way it's written
I
right now.
understand what you're saying now. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that was just a drafting oversight, as this was updated over time. So, but I'll of course work with DMV on that language and make sure that there's no unintended consequences. So this was a late yesterday discovery as I was going through. The section 11 is just a technical change to clarify which part of the Superior Court the title appeals are filed in when you file them in Washington County. Section 12 is a technical change to clarify the exemptions from motor vehicle title requirements. This was a run-on sentence, and so we've broken it into 3 parts. just to make it clear what the three items listed in the sentence are. Section 13 permits state agencies to seek $125 reimbursement for towing costs from DMV. You got testimony about that yesterday. Section 14 is a technical change to the numbering in the section governing computation of diesel fuel tax. And this was just to split out the numbering so that each level is on a similar sort of, so you don't have unrelated things at the same numbering level in there. It's just a clarity piece that DMV's council found. Section 15 is definitions for the purchase and use tax. It clarifies the definition of purchase price for outright purchase versus lease, makes technical changes to the definition of taxable costs for consistency with changes that we made in last year's miscellaneous motor vehicle bill around the process for determining the value of a vehicle that doesn't have clean trade-in value in the JD Power values. And it adds definitions of month, year, shipping weight, and trailer. It's worth noting that DMV is proposing additional changes to this language, and I'm working with them on the language for those changes now, and that should be available again, probably next week is my guess. We have to find a time when we can sit down and work through that language. And then 16 is clarifying how the weight is determined for trucks subject to purchase and use tax, and clarifies that trailers are subject to purchase and use tax and would exempt trailers from the cap on purchase and use tax. My understanding is DMV will be proposing or is proposing new language that would actually apply that max tax cap to trailers. And I'm working with them on the language around that as well.
And I don't know if there's a way in the language to clarify what we're talking about, trailers and trailers. Meaning tractor trailers and like a trailer to haul your two snow.
Right. So that there are ways to clarify that. And I think that is something that should probably be a point of continuing discussion. What are we trying to capture? And that's something I'll be working with DMV on to make sure that what I draft matches what they're intending to propose, and then whatever you approve matches what you intend to have be the law. So that I'm working just to try to make sure that we're clear about that. And this may also, you may need to also make updates to make sure that we clarify when sales and use tax doesn't apply. Because we don't want to have a double taxation instance. So, but
We will want to have a broader discussion to understand what other states are not as meetings.
right, and I have a note to look at Maine. So right before I came up here to testify, I pulled up their Secretary of State website for registration of trailers and semi-trailers with the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. And I'll start digging into what the law is and what their taxes are and so forth.
It's wherever you are, you see a main plate.
Right,
And it's only on tractor, not like on snowmobile. But I could be wrong, I think.
Well,
yeah, and there,
it would be good to just get a number.
Yeah.
and this is also going to, those tractor trailer plates are likely apportioned plates, which means they're under the international registration plan. And I'm gonna need to dig in more to make sure I understand how that registration works and why there may be a benefit to registering it in one state rather than the other. And how that might impact us with the fees and so forth. The section 17 is language to increase the penalty for a snowmobile that's not registered or lacks a TMA decal. It's the trail maintenance assessment decal, and this was proposed by VAST. I think you have testimony scheduled if it hasn't already happened. Section 18 would permit state and municipal employees without a CDL to operate heavy trucks in an emergency. DMV may be proposing some revised language regarding how that emergency would be determined or the type of emergency there. And I got a note, but I don't have initial language on that yet. So I just wanted to make sure that that's flagged in case they do end up proposing that language. And then 19 is the 1 year fee for a 1 year non-domicile commercial driver's license. And then 20 is the effective date, which is currently just set at July 1. Depending on what you add and what you do with this bill, as we heard yesterday on the inspections piece, this effective date is likely to need to change, or at least become, more nuanced. Speaking of inspections, I wanted to note that yesterday, the federal court that's hearing the case on the New Hampshire inspections issued a preliminary injunction preventing them from stopping inspections while they're waiting to hear from the EPA. And I have not had time to read the full decision yet, but I can fill you in on that if and when you return to the inspection discussion.
So we are going to return to that. It does bring up the broader discussion of particularly around the environmental pieces. It would be nice to find some state that has, or a couple of states that don't have inspections, how they handle that when they entered the agreements, the environment. So we have examples of what places have done.
And I think the UVM research outline highlighted some states that do emissions but not safety inspections.
Yep.
And that's on my list, is to go to their laws and look at how they implement
We
that.
should get the people that put together that report from you.
Yeah.
They can come next week.
Yep, we should get them.
And there's of those states that do have inspections or have limited inspections, but also require air quality testing. 15 of them out of the 27 do it every other year. So that is one thing, because New Hampshire's trying to make it, you don't have to do it at all.
At all. But
Look for your happy.
well, yeah,
I'm willing to bet that they get an inspection from you. Yeah, he's gonna get more inspection.
we just, it's a goal to just get information so we have examples of, and we can pick through. I think at this point, what we really need is a motion to, move the bill. Oh, and I think,
Sheriff Clerk.
I think so.
She is. I have experience, you have experience.
Yeah.
You've got the book.
One of us make a motion, one of us take a
Can you be
vote.
the vice chair and the clerk?
No, you can't.
Oh, you want that?
Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay,
Um,
let me get the. Okay,
I would move that we introduce draft 2.1.
Yep.
Of the DMV miscellaneous bill.
Yep, and it, we'll come back here, so.
Yeah.
all right. So.
We have a motion, we have a second from
I don't think we need.
Andy, and
Some chairs like it, some chairs.
All right, Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Harris, I'll hold it open for Wendy.
yeah, we'll hold it up there.
Senator Perchlet,
Yes.
Senator Brennan, yes, Senator Westbrook.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll report it, but it's coming back here anyways. And probably when we get around to report it, we'll break it up a little.
I don't even know if you have to report it. I think they just,
His report will be that we're taking it back.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go up and say, just make sure that,
Yeah, I think at this point, we should check with the secretary about
That was-
how to process it.
that I was, if you give me the draft, I'll take it up. That's the first thing I was going to do.
Do you have
It
a,
has to go to drafting.
yeah,
I think
It has to go to drafting.
I think they go through to print it and then it comes in like a regular bill and it gets introduced and then referred back. I will, email drafting ops right now. I think there's, actually, they've sent out guidance. I'll follow up with you on the, not on video. Um,
Slightly ahead of schedule. So why don't we take 10 minutes? And if we could be back here a little before 11,